Welcome to MediaMelanieTV. Today I'm back to talk about Dexter Resurrection, Season 1, Episode 6. It's called Cats and Mouse, and I really like what they did there with the naming because obviously the cat of it all came into play when we had the funeral for Blessing's mom, Prudence, and then the cat and mouse of it all between Claudette and her partner chasing Harrison, or Mia, even though Claudette is pretty much convinced it's not Mia. Angel comes and pretty much confirms that. He shares all he knows about the Bay Harbor butcher and suspects that it was a different coworker. And when he dropped Harrison's name, the wheels in Claudette's head were probably like spinning full force. And I'm guessing she's going to put some recon on Harrison, see him and Dexter together. Who's going to go down for the crime in that case? Mia is gone. She is dead. Charlie took care of that just like I thought she would in the last episode before she could give away any incriminating information about Dexter. Is it possible that Dexter may end up taking the blame for Harrison? With all of these themes of fatherhood and the generational cycle, especially we had a visual in this episode of Harry, Dexter, and Harrison all standing there in front of the mirror tying the tie. I thought that was visually impactful. I don't think Dexter would end up taking the blame because it's too soon in the series for him to go to jail. They would like to have at least 3 seasons. I can picture there being even more because it's off to such a solid start. My only criticism, I guess, is that they're getting rid of these serial killers so fast. I would have loved to see more Neil Patrick Harris and Kristen Ritter, but with the twist of the Gemini Killer being a twin, I'm actually okay with it. And that twist is something I think many of us in the fandom saw coming, that or dissociative identity disorder. When Dexter had Gareth on his table, he's got the tape over his mouth. I'm like, Dexter, listen to what the man has to say. Now, yes, he's carrying out this crime in his apartment where there's neighbors above, so he doesn't want him to scream. But it maybe would have been to his benefit to get those last words in because Gareth confirmed and said the bookmark was for me. At that point, I'm like, okay, maybe this is a dissociative identity if it's for him, but no, it is actually for his twin brother. And they're obviously very identical twins, and when Gareth shows up there at the end on the helicopter, Dexter must be dying inside. But overall, this episode was dark, twisty, packed with ego on both sides of things from Dexter and from Gareth, and I just loved the deception of it and this reveal that Gareth is in fact a twin. This was actually something we talked about on an episode of Teflon TV. I was a guest on there last week for their episode 5 recap. So I'm going to put the link down in the description. Definitely go and catch that. It was a really fun conversation. I love going on other channels as well. And make sure you hit that subscribe button when you're there. But seriously, from these fanboy facades that Dexter was putting on to the rage kill fakeouts, because I thought Harrison put the fork through the landlord's eye, which confirms that he is more of a rage killer. Even if he's given a code, I don't think he would be able to follow it because he's simply not capable. His emotions take over. However, in this case, he was able to see it and feel it and say that it felt natural, but he didn't actually do it. So is that a step in the right direction? Or is he starting to accept that this does feel natural for him and it might be something that he could undertake and get into trouble for? I mean, Dexter was even like, did you kill him? And Harrison's like, no, I did not. But I mean, it could still happen. He's obviously not very happy at the landlord for the black mold situation. By the way, black mold is no joke. I had a mold situation at the house I used to live in, and wild times, that stuff does a lot of bad things. So hopefully they take care of the mold because poor Dante, right? Highs from this episode. Definitely the Dexter and Gareth showdown. I love seeing these serial killers on Dexter's table. But again, it's a lot of things happening with this group of serial killers ever since Red has entered the scene. And I think Leon and Charlie do suspect. Charlie was probably very concerned when she initially went to Red's apartment and saw the moldy cereal, all the moldy food, and collected mail that he hadn't been there for a while. Dexter's able to play it off like, oh, well, you found me and I value being anonymous, so obviously I had to go somewhere else. He does live in that basement apartment, and Gareth was able to pretty easily track him down, and must have been him at the library where that other book dropped, or perhaps it was his twin. But either way, do we think the twin knows about Dexter and the fact that he was following Gareth? Was it the twin that saw Dexter getting that bookmark, or was it Gareth himself? Drop it in the comments and let me know, because I do feel it could go both ways. However, the side eye that he gave Dexter when he got into that helicopter kind of makes me think, okay, he probably does know. Also, Blessing's emotional backstory. After this episode and learning a little bit more context about this character, I'm gonna say that he is most definitely not the New York Ripper. That is another thing the fandom has been talking about. If anyone's the New York Ripper, I don't know, something about Charlie is a little bit sus to me. But also, maybe it could be Leon's parents. I don't necessarily think that it's Leon, but it's nice how they're tying in that New York Ripper to a case that Claudette was actually working on. So maybe eventually both Claudette and Angel will get closure on these big cases because, like Angel said, this is haunting him, and Angel's not going to stop at anything until he puts Dexter away. But he better be careful because there's a chance he will end up on Dexter's table, but I'm hoping if that does happen, it won't be for a later season because the fandom loves Angel. Batista's been a beloved character from the very beginning, so I would like to see him on my screen for longer, but at the same time, the big swing and impact if they did kill Angel at the end of this season would be wild. Even more wild if Harrison killed Angel in some sort of fit of rage. So what do y'all think? Is Batista even going to make it out of season 1? Again, I hope so, but at the same time, if he doesn't, that would be wow. Another thing we talked about on Teflon TV was the way that they're editing this show. I love how they have this little flash of opening montage of things that happen in the episode, and it's bookended at the end of the episode with similar editing, and it just gives comic book vibes to me. Like Dexter is this dark superhero, and I like the setting of New York, but at the same time, I feel like Miami played such a character in the original Dexter. I wouldn't mind if they shifted to a new location in subsequent seasons and maybe even ended up back in Miami. I would be here for that. Lows. I would have liked to have heard what Gareth was going to say to Dexter before he killed him, but I also understand Dexter's perspective of not removing the duct tape from his mouth, so it's not necessarily a low, more I guess of a personal low because it's something I wanted, but that also plays into the fact that Dexter acted very rashly, and by doing so, he might have put himself in an even worse predicament because now he's going to be targeted by Gareth's twin. About the twins. Have they been interchanging themselves for these different serial killer gatherings that Leon is having so they're both familiar with the group? I would guess so. It's like when twins allegedly switch places in high school, go to different classes, or switch boyfriends or girlfriends. I mean, that trope has been done before, but the twist of a serial killer twin for me, and the fact that he kills in pairs, is really interesting. And to top it all off, we had that picture of the teenage boy and his father, and Gareth saying, you know, I'm doing everybody a service here because the worst thing in life is dying alone, and to be able to die with somebody else is a blessing. But given that they mentioned twice the father and the teenage son, I am wondering, is this twin going to be targeting Dexter even faster than we thought? And that's sort of going to be in the back of his head, like, oh, we've done it before, we can do it again. And then he's going to take out Dexter and Harrison? Highly possible. I was a little bit worried for Dexter making this kill table in his actual apartment because Blessing came down at the worst moment. Dexter was able to put Gareth's body in the shower. When he told him to go to the medicine cabinet to get the Advil, I'm like, Dexter, what are you thinking? Obviously, he wasn't. His heart's probably racing a million miles an hour. And it's funny because we had the comment about him being comfortable around dead bodies back at the funeral. And he's like, well, sometimes I'm not comfortable. But also we heard Dexter talking about the last time he was at a funeral was for Rita. And that kind of like tore through me a little bit as well. But how did Blessing not see the body in there when he went to adjust that shower curtain hook? And it's funny because now there's two landlord situations at play. We have Elsa's landlord and we have Blessing as Dexter's landlord. Is there a reason we're getting that mirroring? I don't know. I guess we'll see. I was thinking Dexter was going to need to put the body on ice, and it's still bugging me just a little bit about the convenience of Dexter being able to find a furnace and cut all these bodies up and then burn them into ashes. I mean, it's good he did. Obviously, he had to find something because he doesn't have a boat like he did when he was in Miami. But at the same time, the whole furnace thing is going to make it a lot harder for him to get caught. Of course, until Gareth's twin probably follows him there and realizes exactly what he is doing and that he's not Red. Will he tell Leon, or will he try to take Dexter out himself? Also curious about how all of that is going to go down. And Dexter seems to have quite the formidable enemy. Now, Dexter's got an ego on himself. He was all butthurt that the Dark Passenger was named after his Dark Passenger, blah, blah, blah. But when we heard Gareth just going off about how he's the #1 most wanted serial killer, he's just the best and tooting his own horn left and right, when I was making my notes, the word ego and Gareth appear together so many times. And I love how Dexter's like, oh, okay, I won this one as soon as he killed him. But unbeknownst to Dexter at that time, he did not win at all. And now he's in an even worse situation, having to face off against this unknown twin who could even be worse than Gareth. I mean, if that's even possible. But so far, I mean, the Gemini Killer is my favorite. Again, I would have loved to see more Neil Patrick Harris. I was very fascinated with the tattoo collector, and I loved the chemistry between Kristen Ritter and Michael C. Hall. And I hate to see her gone, but also it was kind of expected because Charlie and Leon don't want any loose ends, especially because things aren't going seamlessly with this latest gathering. There was another close call there with the poison when Dexter's putting it into the gin and tonics, and Garrett's like, yeah, I'll take a G&T. When Gareth switched the glasses, I was like, oh no, this is not going to go well. How is Dexter going to get out of drinking this drink? But because Dexter is who he is, he thought this through, and he preemptively switched the glasses, and joke was on Gareth. But now, joke's back on Dexter again because Gareth's brother still on the scene. But seriously, when Gareth's like, oh yeah, Red, you're #2 at best, and then Dexter takes him out. He's like, who's #1 now, bitch? He doesn't say bitch. That's me saying bitch, but that's basically what he was saying. I also loved hearing from Mia's victim and the way that they were trying to maybe say, okay, well, were you trying to initiate some sort of physical contact? She wasn't having it. And you could just tell the guy was not lying. He was pretty horrified at the whole thing, being tied up, the lie in the eye comment. But the one note that really stood out was the fact that Mia said, this is going to be my first kill in New York. And everyone's familiar with Lady Vengeance. And yeah, they can tie together all these other crimes to Mia now. It also seems very apparent to everybody investigating as well, especially Claudette and Batista, that Mia was actually not responsible for Ryan's death. It doesn't match the MO. She's not cutting bodies up into pieces. I think one of my favorite lines, going back to Gareth's ego for a second, was when he's talking about someone who's going to play him in a movie, and he's like, oh, I think one of the Culkins will. First of all, that's actually a good pull. I can see a resemblance there, and gotta love the Culkins, especially Kieran. He was my favorite in Succession. But it's almost like Gareth and probably his brother are more obsessed with the fame and notoriety that comes along with being a serial killer than the killing itself. And I hope we're able to learn more, get more context, and really see inside of Gareth's twin brother so we can learn what got them started on this. Is it just because they're twins? What was their first kill that got them into this in the first place? Dying to know. I thought the timing was just a little bit convenient as well when Mia just happened to hang herself and the alarms all go off as Claudette and her partner and Batista arrive at the jail. But it also did add a little bit of tension because we got to see that the person who set it up, or who had Charlie set it up, actually works at the prison. I mean, you guys, corruption is everywhere you go. So I think my biggest question moving into the next episode is, will Gareth's brother suspect Dexter? As I mentioned, I'm leaning towards yes, because that side eye to me was pretty telling. And if he's not, he probably will be soon. And how did he know that Gareth was offline and that he was supposed to show up? Do they take shifts and it was his turn to come anyway? They obviously must share a burner phone or use one of those forwarding apps to have the burner phone calls sent to the other one's phone. When they kill the pairs, are they a killer pair as well? Or does one of them take both of the victims out? I really want them to focus more on this methodology and backstory of Gareth. And I'm hoping that in episode 7 that we'll get some of that. I'm also dying to know if Harrison is actually going to kill somebody again. He doesn't want to, but I also think he's coming to terms with the fact that there is something inside of him that he may not be able to quiet without killing. And something I've been seeing around as well, Harrison's friend Elsa. She was rocking a ponytail in one of the earlier episodes, and I've seen all over the internet people saying Rapunzel Killer is going to end up taking her out. And I think that's definitely possible, especially as these storylines start to converge. And speaking of Rapunzel, is Dexter going to take him out next? Seems like it would be far too sudden, just given the fact that everybody else is disappearing here. But I also want to see the Rapunzel Killer get some kills under his belt in New York. And also, where are they going on this helicopter? Can you imagine if this is flying down to Miami and they land there and Dexter's like, oh no, they're on to me. I don't necessarily think that they are quite yet, but also not ruling that out. Where do you guys think this helicopter is going? Drop it in the comments. And finally, Charlie. She didn't seem super pleased with Leon in the last episode, but she's also a company girl. She's collecting a good paycheck, probably to take care of her mom, who's in some sort of care right now. Could there be some twist where either Charlie and Dexter work together, or Charlie starts hunting Dexter down, or, I don't know, Charlie could maybe be the New York Ripper? Who is the New York Ripper? Is it a character we've met already, or is it somebody completely different? And I'm also wondering, will the New York Ripper become more of the focus for season 2? Because we do have a lot going on here in season 1, but I've appreciated all of the table setting, the pacing, the momentum, the guest stars. It's been really solid so far, and I think most importantly, I am really coming around on Harrison, who I did not love in New Blood, but Jack Alcott, the actor who plays him, is really coming into his own and bringing more to the character. He seems to be really putting in the work. I'm starting to feel for Harrison, so props to Jack for really channeling the Harrison vibe this season. I think he's doing a great job. Finally, really quick, the needle drops. No major bangers here, but we did get These Arms of Mine by Otis Redding, I Can Hear You by The Dead Weather, and Blood Makes Noise by Suzanne Vega. The opening line of this episode I thought was very clever. Dexter's out there sweeping, and he said, there's just something so comforting about the sound of sweeping and chasing all the dirt and grime away, which is also a pretty big metaphor for what he's doing as this vigilante serial killer. Overall, this episode was packed, emotionally, psychologically, and narratively. I love a show that I'm not looking down at my phone and texting. I am dialed into Dexter this season, and I hope that you are too. Don't miss that episode 5 review I did with Teflon TV. Those guys are great. Be sure to hit the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel. I'm here covering other TV shows as well. I just finished up with The Buccaneers on Apple TV+. Continuing the summer, I Turned Pretty on Prime Video. And for all you fans of dark TV shows, cannot recommend enough The Institute on MGM+. It stars Mary Louise Parker, adapted from a Stephen King book. It's giving Stranger Things and School Spirits kind of vibe, so highly recommend. I know MGM isn't the most popular streaming service, but that's okay. You can just add it onto your Prime Video subscription, and I recommend binging the show from while you are there. Thank you so much for sticking with me every week for my Dexter coverage. I really appreciate it. I'm on a journey to become a full-time content creator, and every time you tune in here with me, it just helps me get one step closer to that goal. So I really appreciate it, and I'll be back again soon. Media Melanie, clicking off.